Everybody, another vulnerability challenge day. And I won't lie, I have been sitting here trying to think of ways to avoid saying what I planned on saying. So I am doubling down and trying to stay on subject mentally because I've been trying to skip around and avoid everything and not look at it directly or say it out loud, feeling blocked in my throat chakra. So, what I have on my mind, I have two things on my mind. And I don't know if I'll cover them both. Something has to get left for the third day anyway. But I think I'm going to start with suicidal emotions. I touched on a little bit yesterday with my drug use as a teenager and my habits in regards to how I took care of myself, which I didn't. At one point in my life, I weighed 298 pounds, and that self-hatred that built up during that time was interesting. I mean, everybody goes through it, I imagine. Like, sometimes people have dark thoughts, but or bad behavior or bad habits that don't support their mental health. And that was definitely my case. I was not equipped. I didn't get taught how to handle emotions correctly. I was taught to cover it up with a pill from pretty early on. And like I said, both my parents were in substance abuse programs. My mom was in Al-Anon. My dad was in AA, but he was also went through several drug diversion programs as well. My mom didn't go through drug diversion programs, but she needed to. Anyway, back to me. Stop trying to avoid talking about myself. My first feelings of helplessness and self-hatred came around when I was like 13, 14. And the reason why it started popping up for me was my sister was 17 and she was dating a 33-year-old at the time, and my mom was completely allowing it. And the situation upset me beyond scope. It was against everything I had been taught as a Christian growing up. Like, I was raised Seventh-day Adventist. You just things that you're just taught not to do. It's drilled in. And I became anxious for the first time in my life, but I didn't know what to call it. And I developed heart palpitations, anxiety, where I would wake up in the middle of the night sweating. I would have these racing thoughts and didn't know what to do with them. I didn't know how to self-soothe or self-parent or any of those coping mechanisms that are healthy. I was not disciplined in the ways of self-talk and doing body scans and meditation, and all I was taught to do was to cry for help to God and not feel power within myself. So during that time of my life, I saw myself in a household where I didn't agree with anything that was happening, and it was out of my hands to control anything. And that's when I realized that I was the odd man out. I felt like the black sheep of the family, and I was treated that way, and that continued throughout my teenage years. That was around the time when I started taking major painkillers at the time too, because I couldn't handle what was happening. So they decided, I don't know who they is, I guess my mom decided I needed to go see a cardiologist. And I was going to him for several months. And every single time we got to talking, And my mom wasn't even in the room all the time, but they would tell me to stop thinking about boys, and that's what was making me anxious. I was creating my own stress because of hormones, right? They basically told me that I was causing my own stress. My heart palpitations weren't really palpitations, but I did have a murmur. But it was months and months and months of rigorous testing, and then they finally boiled it down to it's your fault for thinking about boys because you're a young girl, right? There can't be any other causes for anxiety for kids that age. Like, I don't know. And of course, I was too scared to say anything about what was happening inside the household. So I took the blame because I didn't really know that that was inappropriate for a physician to say. I didn't have any allies. And at the time, I don't really have best friends either. They were a little older than me, the people that I had access to. So these folks, I was started to get closer to them 14, 15, 16, and I was friends with them until I was 18, but they were 5 and 9 years older than me. And it wasn't long before they started teaching me how to drink and smoke cigarettes. When I was 16, I had when I was 14, I did my first missionary trip to Honduras. And I hadn't done anything yet, but that was the first time that I felt freedom away from home. And I was probably the best I'd felt in my entire life, and I didn't want to come back to America. I had panic attacks about coming home. But anyway, so those feelings of loneliness and being the odd man out and feeling misunderstood accumulated to those times when, like I said yesterday, I would do a bunch of drugs and hope I didn't wake up in the morning. I didn't think I mattered at all. There was nobody except for my grandparents at the time who I felt like would have missed me genuinely. I didn't feel liked by my mother or understood by my sister. She was pitting us against each other. We had a narcissistic issue where she was the golden child and I wasn't at all. There was nothing I could do to win her over. It was just the way it was. When I was 12, my mom sat me down I've told this to very few people. My mom tucked me into bed at night and told me that I was supposed to be an abortion, that she saved my life because my dad suggested to have an abortion. It was about to be her 7th if I was aborted. Hey, my cats are fighting. But my dad has a different story. He says that she's the one that suggested it and he saved me. But either way, that damaged my mind quite a bit. I was too young to hear that. Even though I had an inkling that my parents would have been happier without children. And they would have. But I was an accident. So I was told. And that divorced me from feeling like I belonged anywhere on this planet. So that was interesting for me to find out that, my mom basically thinks to this day that I owe her my life. Because she said as much, that the only purpose I have on this planet is to help her because she saved me. My mom's an Aquarius sun, Virgo moon. I don't know her rising. But to this day, I've had really rough experiences with Virgo moons, with Mars and Pisces. I've fallen in love with one. And that's part of my, personal journey. Is I'm still learning how to recognize that I have wound patterning, and I have stuff to work through when it comes to that. Because of all this shit, like, I have gone through a lot of unrequited love issues, where I feel like the last few years are different, right? Like, say, last 3 or 4 years, I was boiling my marriage down, about 4 years ago. We were hitting our point where we were going to break up. And then 3 years ago, officially broke up and got divorced. And I've been single since then, except for a little bit of friend with benefit thing, which was the Moon and Virgo issue that I had falling in love. But I feel like everything's a learning experience, so I'm not trying to complain, don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to talk about what I've been through. I'm trying to also remember my point for bringing any of this up. My cats are being silly. Yeah, so I guess my big thing is yeah, I was suicidal. And I had made mental plans for making, like, I already knew I had an exit strategy when I was a kid. 16, 17. My plan was to make a bunch of plans with my friends and family at different, like, make plans for a week ahead or whatever, and then I would kill myself so that it would make the maximum impact and that people would realize that they were going to miss me a lot. I was angry and hurt, and I wanted to take as many people as I could with me. I didn't know if God existed at that point, but I had a perception of a very martial one, where it's the pain and punishment of not following your instructions, right? Like, very capital punishment God. That was my perception. I still have issues with God. I don't know if I pray anymore, although, like, sometimes I do, but I don't know if it's misplaced energy, because I don't feel like the God that I was raised to believe is, I don't even think that the name is correct. So I don't know which God I'm talking to, but I do believe in some sort of force that is ultimate, but benevolent. I don't know. There's a lot I haven't figured out there yet, but I'm very uncomfortable saying the word God because I feel like that's not his name or their name. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble. People don't really see this side of me anymore. I don't feel suicidal anymore. And it took a lot of work to stop the anxiety and palpitations, and learning how to self-parent with Sucky. It was some of the worst shit. Like, and I still have to work on that. Like, there's a lot that I'm still working on in that department, but I feel like progress gets made every day. And especially when it comes to taking care of myself, I've changed my routine entirely. I work out 3 times a week because it makes me feel good, mentally and physically. Plus, I'm in physical therapy. And I'm actively healing wounds every day, as soon as I come upon them. And I don't really know what it is that's making me think about these things right now at this time of year. Maybe it's just like the purge right before the new year. But my hope for myself is that I'm able to strip away what is preventing me from feeling love in this life right now. There's still things that I think the worst, like I assume people are thinking the worst of me, or I get defensive when I don't need to. And it causes a lot of ridiculousness. So I don't really know if I have anything more to say at this moment, but I'll do more tomorrow. This is 15 minutes long, so hopefully it's not boring. But what do I want you to take away from this? Just because the moment is that bad, it's just a moment. There's more moments. And it's not all bad. You can learn, you can trust yourself. If you can't trust anybody else, you can trust yourself. And hopefully you learn how to do that if you're not there yet. But I'm sending love to you if you're having rough emotions at the end of the year here. This Capricorn energy is a lot, and it makes you feel like a piece of shit if you're not reaching your goals every second of every day. And it's not always about that. Sometimes it's about taking care of yourself too. So rest with your feelings, try not to drown them out. And if you need somebody to talk to, we can do that. But what I really want you to do, if you're in the middle of feeling chaotic and a lot of alarm bells, is to breathe. Focus on your breath. That's the most important thing right now if you're in the middle of a panic attack. Then we'll work things out later. But I do empathize with what you're going through. And I can help you prioritize a list of things to do to take care of yourself. If you want to have a session with me, we can talk about therapy methods that you can use to help trust yourself again, and techniques that I've used to help self-soothe. Very important, but mainly it's in the breath. That's the secret. If you can focus on that, you can separate what doesn't matter, and you can focus on this. Once you get the baseline for this, everything else starts to make sense, I promise. Excuse me. All right, this is too long. All right, love you guys. Bye.